So you'll also have access to this afterwards too. All that to say. So I'm gonna share my screen with you all. Can everybody see this okay? Just wanna check in. Can you guys see the slides? Or at least one slide? So I'm essentially picking up where we left off last time, and I want to name that ahead of time. So some of you might be like, what are we talking about? Where are we at? Why do I feel disoriented right now? And I'm gonna pick up kind of where we left off because we still didn't get to a lot of the dialogue. Because there's just a lot of content here and a lot of information to move through. But before we do that, something that feels important to me is to invite us to do a little bit of co-regulation. And so if you feel called to turn your screen off, to be able to tend to yourself, I'm going to invite just like 2 minutes of us connecting to our breath and connecting to our bodies and letting go of whatever we had going on before this. So if you feel like that's vulnerable and you want to turn off your screen, a trauma-informed way is to do so. And so I'll invite you to find comfort. In whatever way that looks like for you, maybe adjusting your hips into your seat. I'll invite you to gently look around the room. Allow your gaze to orient to the space. Maybe take in something new that you haven't noticed before, you haven't noticed in a while. And if that feels complete, I'll invite you to either find a drishti on the floor in front of you, which is a focal point, just to soften your gaze to, or if it feels comfortable, I'll invite you to close your eyes. Allowing your hands to fall into relaxation, allowing the shoulders to drop away, and to sink a little deeper into your seat for a brief moment. Feeling the sensation of the seat support your sits bones below you. Maybe rocking your hips a little bit, deepening into the seat. And from this place, I'd like to invite you on your next exhale to exhale all the way out. Inhale, filling up belly, ribs, and chest. And sighing to release, letting it go. I'll invite us to 2 more of those. Inhaling, filling up. Exhaling, sighing to release. Giving yourself permission to be in this space with everybody. Inhaling to fill up. And exhaling, letting the day go. Inviting you to softly inhale through your nostrils. And pursing your lips as if you're blowing through a straw, exhaling. Inviting you to inhale for 4. And pursing your lips to exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhaling, filling up for 4. And pursing your lips to exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inviting you this time to inhale for 5. And pursing your lips, stretching your exhale for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhaling for 5. And pursing your lips to exhale for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inviting you this time to inhale for 6. And pursing your lips to exhale for 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhaling for 6, last one. And pursing your lips, slowly releasing the breath for 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inviting you to find a soft and subtle breath, slowly inhaling through the nose. And even more softly and subtly exhaling out through the mouth. Finding a natural undulation that feels good for you. And just for a moment, I'd like to invite us to briefly scan our bodies and to notice and witness our somatic intelligence. Noticing what your body is experiencing at this moment. What is one sensation that you can feel? Can you feel your arm twitch, or your throat constrict, or your hips feel tight, or your glutes are tired from sitting, or your back is a little uncomfortable? And with whatever that sensation is that your attention is drawn to, I'd like to invite you to tend to it, to offer it movement, to offer it massage, to offer it liberation in whatever form that looks like, to offer it clenching and then relaxing, to offer it a different position. Something to tend to the wisdom that your body is sharing with you in this moment. And when that feels complete, I'd like to invite you on your next inhale to gently bring movement back into your full body, helping your body remember where you are, wiggling your fingertips and your toes, slowly shaking your head yes and no, inhaling your toes up towards the sky and exhaling, pressing them down like petals. And then on your next inhale after that, I'd like to invite you to soften your gaze. And before looking at the screen, allowing your gaze to float around the room, bilaterally stimulating your eyes to let them know where you are. And grounding it back into the space. Welcome back. Nice and slow. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Maybe if you feel called to, I'd like to invite you to just drop one word and how you feel in the chat, or one sensation that you felt, just to give us a moment to connect. And then I'll talk a little bit about sex and Cap. Relaxed, relaxed, grounded, settled, decompressed. Thanks to our folks who are sharing. Shoulder tension, then relax, loose, centered, alert. I don't know, for myself, I'm tired. It's a word that's present for me. So my voice is going to be pretty soft. I've had a pretty big day and I'm very pregnant right now. So, yeah, good timing for this kind of dialogue. So, I guess I'll give you guys just about who I am. So, I'm in the process of moving through my sex therapy certification. I'm about done, and it's been a long 7 years of my life to get all these things accomplished and to graduate with all these degrees. And I know that Lucy can resonate with all of that. It's a lot of extra education to become a certified sex therapist, and a lot of extra money. Like I'm about an additional like $200,000 into this journey, which is quite an immense amount of money and time. And I don't regret it at all. It's been absolutely incredible to meet the people I've met and develop the relationships I've met. But I just want to name that like my relationship with learning about human sexuality goes back pretty deeply. About 13 years ago is when I started. And sexuality is at the center of my orientation and my practice and is a really important focal point for engaging in ketamine assisted psychotherapy. And I'm a strong advocate for us learning how to have dialogue with our clients around the ways sexuality and gender intersect with ketamine assisted psychotherapy experiences. Um, and not necessarily in the moments when they're coming up, but preemptively planning for that to be a part of the experience. Um, yeah, if you follow me on social media and things like that, the YouTube channel is where I'm going to post these videos, so you'll have free access to those. It's just Rooted Healing Sanctuary on YouTube. Um, and if anybody doesn't have YouTube or doesn't want to get on YouTube, I'll invite you to just email me and I'll email you the link to the video from today and last time too. Okay? I'm open to that. Um, yeah, I don't want to go too much in the weeds about who I am. You can find more information about me on my website, and the lineages and knowledge that I carry and things like that. Honoring the people who have taught me and the people who have come before me and all of the wisdom that percolates inside of them that's been passed on to me feels in deep integrity. And just wanting to name that. It's something that I mentioned last time too, and sacred reciprocity is one way that that is navigated specifically inside of the psychedelic field. It's something that unfortunately, ketamine assisted psychotherapy doesn't really tap into that much because ketamine is a manufactured pharmaceutical medicine and it hasn't been anything but that. But those folks who are in the field and navigate other ceremonies, like maybe ayahuasca, um, or psilocybin ceremonies and things like that, and working with indigenous medicine, there's like different ways that ancestral wisdom is acknowledged and cared for deeply and protected inside of those experiences. And there's a part of me that feels that's important to bring inside of the CAP space too, especially because when I'm working with clients, I have a tendency to invite them every single client and every single session is I'll invite them to invoke their ancestors, and I'll invite them to invoke animal spirits, or I'll invite them to invoke people in their life that they want to be in the healing realm with them. And so that they can pull on those energies and have access to deeper connection and relationship, especially if those people aren't physically in the room. That's always an option, guys, is you can invite your clients to welcome a family member in the space or their therapy animal in the space, given Gail's permission, whatever. But those comfort and those experiences, connection is really important inside of this. And that's something that I really love about couples work and alternative relationship work, is that relationship and connection is at the center. So I'm going to skip all of this stuff because I talked about it last time. Okay. So CAP for couples has I talked a little bit about this last time too, but has the capacity to affect the relationship's openness, to affect one's ability to access difficult emotions, to improve communication because of the reduced guarding and the reduced protection mechanisms that come with the default mode network. It has the capacity to enhance creativity, which is something that's fascinating to me because creativity is deeply connected to sexuality. It has the capacity for one to develop accelerated learning because of all of this beautiful conversation around neuroplasticity, and advance healing, improve potential for forgiveness of oneself and other people, increase trust, allowing for a deepening of intimacy and reducing fear and avoidant tendencies. I mean, there's just so much brilliance that can come from this modality, interweaving it with couples. And if we're talking about all of those things, like who works with couples in the space? If you can just like either drop something in the chat or raise your hand just to let me know who's working with couples. I heard a couple people. Yeah. I mean, these things that I'm talking about, you guys see, right? We see it play out in the therapy space where we can witness guarding, where we can witness one's inability to allow for relaxation of their own emotional experience, and they have to be right, and are really stuck in that, or maybe lacking radical self-responsibility and accountability because of the crisis kind of internal nervous system activation they're having. And ketamine has the capacity to reduce those experiences inside the difficult dialogue. Okay. What do I want to share about this here? Because we don't have a whole lot of time. And I want to leave space for questions too. So I talked a little bit about, I think I might have talked a little bit about how psychedelic medicine dates so far back to, I don't even have time periods because this stuff is so deeply hidden and gatekept, but there have been practices historically where psychedelics have been used in Tantra, ancient Tantra practices in India and Nepal. And I'm not sure if that also disseminates into China, but in that realm. And the information around that is deeply protected. But one thing that I have learned about that realm a little bit is anyone familiar with blue lotus flower? I invite you to check it out because I don't have a whole lot of time. It's legal, so we'll say that. It has the capacity to deepen dream space, to shift consciousness, to allow folks to more deeply connect through heart-centered space, kind of like ceremonial cacao. It has the capacity to enhance blood flow to the genitals, which can increase pleasure during sexual encounters. The medicine is brilliant, but that is one that I know has like dated thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, where it has been interwoven into Tantra practices, which this wisdom comes from. And for me, I interweave Tantra inside of my sex therapy practice, even though in my sex therapy training that's not been prioritized, but it feels out of integrity to learn and explore those things. And I had already been doing that before I decided to be a sex therapist. But nonetheless, I'll digress on that one so that we have some spaciousness. Yeah, there's a person that's coming to my mind that I want to share a little bit about. And then I can talk a little bit about some of these things. So I'm gonna just stop sharing for a second because I have some links for you guys. I'm gonna post in the chat. So I'm gonna share with you links to several different couples therapy ketamine retreats. And then I'm going to share a link to you for you to experience Fluence right now is one of the organizations that has a free like 45-minute drop-in about ketamine assisted psychotherapy for couples. And that is spearheaded by Jane Gumpel and Seema Desai. They collaborate together to host a couples psychotherapy ketamine retreat. But I'm going to pop this in the chat here. Okay, there's the training, and then let me pull up the links that I have for the retreats. It looks like they're not on here. I know that I did put them on here in my computer at home. What I'll do is I'll write a sticky note for myself and I'll send you guys some of them. But what I'm inviting you to is to one, do a little bit more deeper dive education into this realm, which is what the Fluence link is for. And there's a lot more where that comes from. And also to have resources for your clients if they do want to deepen or are having trouble and are stuck in conflict or stuck in cycles or stuck in patterns, and they're unable to reduce some of those things that I talked about to be able to create an open space for change, for shifting. Okay, so that is an option. There's other ways for folks to deepen, like couples acupuncture or couples massage therapy or couples Reiki or couples shamanic healing. I mean, like the modalities are endless, but specifically we're here to talk about CAP. So did everybody get my email earlier and yesterday? Just shake your head. Let me know. Okay, just want to make sure because I know I sent an email out to the old link, but I think it was missing a couple of people. So Jane Gumpel and Seema Desai, they are also humbly surrendering to the fact that they don't know exactly what this field entails yet either. So the research is not as prominent quite yet around couples, like the efficacy around couples ketamine psychotherapy. And right now I know that there's research happening for family assisted ketamine therapy, which is fascinating. I learned about that at the MAPS conference last year. And I was like in awe because the VA is the one that's conducting that. I was like, whoa, a little blown open about that. Nonetheless, there's another sex therapist that talks about this too, and her name is slipping my mind. Lucy, do you have any idea who I'm talking about?
In conjunction with what? I mean, been a member of ASEC and STAR, so what are you talking?
I'm
Sorry.
talking about one of the sex therapists. She's like famous and has written several novels, and she is someone who's like touted as spearheading the field in establishing couples ketamine assisted psychotherapy. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna share with you a
Like
couple.
Pat Love has done some retreats in California. She's the one that comes to mind.
Hmm,
Have you heard of Pat Love? And she's been
yeah,
around for,
I put her name in the chat for everybody.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A colleague of mine did a retreat, her and her husband in California in the winter, and they thought it was great, and it involved ketamine. So,
Brilliant.
okay.
So this link that I just provided you all with is Jane Gumpel's retreats um, with Dr. Vasai too. And so some of my social worker in me is like, let me resource share because we only have like 20 minutes together and I don't have enough time to talk about this. um, yeah. So some of the things I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to go back. Some of what is fascinating for me right now is I work with a lot of clients who struggle with erectile dysfunction or vaginismus or pain with penetration. There's an external pain due to skin related issues and things like that. And I have several clients who are in like seeing pelvic floor specialists because their pelvic floor is tight. And that's like a whole other genre of sexual function problems. But psychedelics right now, particularly, are being utilized to treat sexual dysfunction, which is really quite fascinating. And this is one of the most recent research articles I stumbled upon that was published just this year. And this like deeply excites my soul. But I wanted to share that with you all. This is like this kind of research is brand new. I know that Imperial College of London is running something right now too. It's not particular to sexual function, but I think it's particular to sexual satisfaction. I think this one was also published this year. Yeah, just actually 2 months ago. Some research was conducted in a group ketamine assisted psychotherapy retreat experience for couples. And if you have access to the slides, you have access to these links. Everybody should have access to them. I talked a little bit about Tantra. These are some of my lineages. My particular lineage in India is the Akanda lineage. And Lucy, if you go to the Tantra SIG meeting in September, I'm going to be hosting one of my Tantra teachers as a guest speaker to share a little bit about Tantra too, if you wanted to attend that. But I'm going to invite you guys all to some questions and then we'll leave some space for some questions. So this is an inventory that I do with everybody that comes to work with me, whether you're here for sex therapy or not. And this is something that I'm inviting you to take to your practice. You don't have to be a sex therapist to ask these questions, but to be aware of how sexuality can interact into the experience that you're going to be facilitating with somebody. And I talked a little bit last time about how sexuality has shown up in my practice, and I haven't been prepared for it historically, which has led me now to facilitate dialogue around it. Okay, like I've had clients have like orgasmic experiences in here. I've had clients who have tried to take their clothes off, and like boundaries are really critical in this realm, especially with couples. Like when couples have reduced inhibition, there has to be clear boundaries around what touch is appropriate and what's going to happen if we violate the boundaries and things like that. Those are conversations that I had last time too. But if you'd like to take a screenshot of this, you also have access to these slides. Yeah. But I think it's important to think about, even for yourself, most of us have probably experienced medicine experiences in here, and we haven't had anybody solicit these kinds of questions for us or dialogue for us. But how can your sex education and how can your sexuality impact your relationship with the medicine? You know? And then if you have sexual trauma, particularly your childhood trauma or something like that, and it comes up during your ketamine experience, how do you want the therapist to tend to you? Like, how can I support you? Do you want me to hold your hand? Do you want us to stop everything? Do you want me to turn down the music? Do you want me to distract you with a different question? You know? Do you want me to invite you to go deeper? That's some of the dialogue, is like we invite people to walk through those windows or doors. It's like if some people's nervous system's not ready for that and they don't consent to that, they don't want to do that, then having the option and having preemptively talked about that, like inviting them to shift gears, is totally possible. Sometimes we don't really get to control what the medicine facilitates for us, and I'm sure you all can empathize with that. But there's a deep level of power dynamics that I think need to be explored inside the space. Like BDSM is a really great reference for that, but you do have capacity to influence that person's experience profoundly. Oh, this is from one of my favorite books. The book is by Alexandra Rojo, and it's called Fuck Like a Goddess. For all my ladies out there. It's a really good book. I actually have it right here. But there's like a level of psychedelic experiencing inside of this piece and the inventories and the rituals that she invites you to. Okay, here's some great resources. And there's a one on here that's actually not here. So I'll let you take a peek at those for a second. Most of you maybe have heard of these already. So Jeffrey Lundgren, him and I just collaborated on a couple things. He's partly the reason why I wrote the article that I shared with you all. But he just published a piece on psychedelic assisted sex therapy. However, he doesn't talk about couples therapy in that piece, because when he was writing it 5 years ago, he's been working on it for a long time, that wasn't happening. But I want to share another piece with you. Going with more than one. So this is one of my favorite pieces. This is a doctor out of Colorado. He's brilliant. Astreus. He writes a little bit about energy work and psychedelic use and how to care for, and what dosings, and just so much. He runs the Denver club, Denver Psychedelic Club, and how to interweave that into sexual encounters, especially as a harm reductive approach. So that's his whole orientation to this piece, is people are already doing this stuff. And if you are navigating integration with folks and you're like supporting that, then this is a way to expand your capacity inside of integration. If I did a research survey on all my clients that come that want to experience ketamine assisted psychotherapy, I would, guess that maybe like 40% of those people have engaged in psychedelic use with a partner before. In a sexual encounter particularly. There's some research that's happening around that right now too. That's the Imperial College of London that's conducting that. And then this author, Sunny Strasberg, if you guys have heard of her work, she hosts ketamine retreats too. And then Dr. Tori Gold, she's actually one of the people that inspired me at the AASECT conference last year to talk a little bit more about this stuff and to learn a little bit more about this. she offers supervision if you want to and desire to learn a little bit about couples assisted ketamine psychotherapy. She offers supervision right now for that. And I don't know a specific training offhand that does offer this, but I'd be curious to see that. Something more specific. I know that, oh, what's the organization? I paid a deposit last year to attend an organization's training this year, and they like reclined the training for some reason, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. And it was the first one that I saw of its kind. It was specifically for couples and alternative relationship and interweaving psychedelic medicine. See what else is here. Here's some more research that's happening. Oh, microdosing and psychedelics. So that's something that Jane Gumpel creates as an option for her clients who come to her couples therapy retreats. So she doesn't ever, like with her and the doctor, they don't ever prescribe a specific dose to somebody. They allow the client to have autonomy over that decision-making process. Like if somebody doesn't want to have a therapeutic, like a deeper experience, then she invites them to microdose, or she'll also invite them to not even have the medicine. Like there's like so many different ways that they navigate that, where one of the partners will have an experience and the other one will be kind of sitting and supporting them. It's quite fascinating the way that those couples retreats can shift around. Like we might all assume that they would all be taking the medicine, but that's not always the case. Tammy Nelson. Yeah, that's her. Yeah, she was just hosted on a training. That's her. Brilliant human being. She's doing a lot of brilliant work right now. Thanks, Lucy. I appreciate that. Yeah. All right, so let's leave some space for some questions. This is a lot of information, which is why we did a part 2. And there's a lot to learn. This is also another really great book, guys. This will tell you a little bit more about some of the history around psychedelic use and Tantra.
Alexandria, I have a question. I would love if you could kind of bring this to life for us. I don't know if you can pull from examples, but just kind of walk us through maybe what a typical session like this would look like, what you would cover, what would happen in the room.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. Are you curious about preparation, or are you curious about the therapy session, or are you curious about integration? That might need be another hour for all of those. Just wanting to get some context.
Right. I'm curious about all of them, but nothing specific, whatever you want to share.
So I'll say right now, even though I have a really strong passion for it, I have not personally facilitated a couples assisted psychotherapy with ketamine. At this point in my journey, I'm learning. However, for everything that I do, I'm oriented as a sex and relationship therapist. And so I can speak to orienting about how that goes. Okay. Yeah. Are you open to that? And just like wanting to be in integrity, like I'm here very passionate and wanting to navigate couples assisted ketamine therapy. Gail, wink, wink. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the medicine session because that's what's sticking out to me right now, and how we interweave sexuality inside of the experience. And usually it happens with the first one where I talk a little bit about sexuality, and I don't I don't necessarily remind folks every single time. However, I could see a benefit for actually reminding folks of some boundaries, and agreements that we've come to around those things. So specifically in the first session, I'll drop in with somebody and connect with them before anything happens, before the nurse gets to them, before the doctor might get to them. And that's to help the nervous system co-regulate with me because most people are coming in fairly anxious, and I'll just say that. And concerned, and they have questions, and they're not really sure what kind of questions to ask, and they want to know the context of how things are going to go. And so in those moments, we'll do a little bit of breath work, and they have already worked with me so that they know that I'm very strong and adamant about somatic work. And if that's not for them, then I'm not the right clinician for them. Okay. I do that work because it's really important to be able to work inside of the medicine space, at least for me and what I do. Okay. That's not for everybody. And then I provide them with context of how everything is going to go. Okay. And when I'm providing context, we bring up sexuality. Is there anything that you are concerned about that might come up today? Especially because everybody that comes to me is coming to me with sexuality problems, sexuality issues, whether that's infidelity recovery, whether that's sexual trauma, whether that's pain with penetration, whether that's fertility issues or a miscarriage or child loss. Like I invite an opportunity to consider that might be a possibility. And inside of that possibility, I'll invite them, how do you want me to tend to that? Okay, today, because that might have changed from the time that we had dialogue around preparation. Do you want me to invite you to go into that, or would you like me to distract you from that and invite you somewhere else? What do you feel your nervous system has capacity to honor? Bye, Roger. And so that's one way I invoke that. For someone who, like I have clients who have sexual compulsions or sexual, yeah, I'll just leave it at sexual compulsions. I'm of the framework, I don't believe in the notion around sex addiction. Addiction language around sexuality for me does not resonate. For those folks, I will have, and this is really interesting that this is coming up for me because I have some probably deeper exploration to do around this. I will invite a conversation around boundaries. Again, a reminder. You know, because what's not okay is if somebody's like going to masturbate in the middle of a ketamine session, okay? Like you guys do not have to hold space for that, and that's not what we're here to do, okay? But it can happen, and having conversations about it and being prepared for that is really important. Bye, Peter. So I'd like to say, Charlotte, that the context changes based on the client too. You know, but there is a level of like standardization, I think, that is necessitated in having conversations around sexuality. And the sexual inventory that I offered is something that we do in our first meeting, okay? Or like second meeting. So like preparation session, if that's what you're specifically doing with them, or if it's a long-term client that wants to engage in ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And so after those things are navigated, like boundaries, reminders, support, any changes, checking in with their body too. Like we'll move towards facilitating either the IV or the person will administer their sublingual or dissolve tab. Yeah. And then that goes where it goes, you know, that context changes really with everybody. Like just the other day I sat with somebody who was like experiencing like an intense amount of euphoria. And she only took 200 milligrams in a dissolved tab. And her experience was so cathartic and beautiful to witness. It was, in fact, it's the only ketamine session I've ever cried. Like I had tears come out of my eyes in that session supporting that person. And just like there was a point where she reached out for my hand because she was really scared. And we had already discussed touch. Like touch is an important conversation to be having, and what kind of touch is appropriate and okay, and an agreement around that. That's also another reminder for the first session. And then usually the clients understand the kind of level of touch that's appropriate from that point on. But if you have to remind them because you have a client who struggles with boundaries, there are clients that struggle with boundaries. And so those reminders are important and helpful, especially before the medicine. Like not in the middle of a medicine session are we reminding someone of the boundaries for the first time. Yeah. At least that's something I learned so far. Yeah. Trying to think about that. There's so much to talk about because integration, there's so much conversation that's had around, especially with the clients that I specifically work with around sexuality. Like that client I was talking to you about who experienced euphoria, she has a severe long history of sexual abuse as a child. Like one of her earliest experiences was 4 and it went on until she was like 13. You know, and that's like to witness her be free for like the first time. It's just incredible. But in our integration that came up, and that was like a whole hour that we talked literally about the abuse, which she hasn't had the capacity to really talk about the details of the abuse before. You know, just really it's so profound. I can't even these kinds of conversations deserve like 25 hours. And I do recognize it's 8:03. Yeah. Hi, Gail. Thank you for letting us know. Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much for sharing that, Alexandria. That's, yeah, it's great to hear some examples.
Yeah. There's so many more, and I could probably go off on so many different tangents, especially as a tired person that I am right now. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? Like maybe I can answer one via email or something like that. Or I'm open to connecting outside of the space at another time. Yeah. Okay. I'll have a lot more to share whenever I experience couples assisted psychotherapy. I'm trying to convince Gail for a retreat right now. She's not here, but
You should do, yeah, do that.
I want to, and we can do that with the dissolve tabs.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure, guys. It was a pleasure, Alexandria. And I'll probably be seeing you later this week, right?
Yeah, see you on Friday.
Cool. Awesome. Well, bye, guys. Have a good one. See you all
Bye,
around.
Thank you.
everybody.
Peace.
Thanks so much.
Thanks
Thanks,
so much. You're
everybody.
so awesome. Bye.